I made over $12,000 in May of 2021 as a delivery driver. I'll flash up my account screenshot. Just pause and do the math. I don't know exactly what it is, what the total was right now, but I'll add it up on the screen. I've been hesitant, even reluctant to make this video. I've always wanted to be thought of as like a photographer, a content creator, a videographer, whatever, a creative. I don't want anyone to think of me as a delivery driver. But I'm retired now, I feel a little bit more comfortable with everything. And part of me thinks that I need to make this video to sort of put it behind me. Hey, my name is Christian, but you can call me Lo. I took 2 days off, I think the 14th or the 31st. The 31st is my brother's birthday. The rest of the month, I worked about 12 hours a day. Up to $419 today, so which puts me squarely at under $100 behind schedule. It is a lot of work, but if you do the math, it ends up being almost $35 an hour. Here's how you can do exactly the same thing. Number one, get on multiple apps. More than anything else, you're gonna need volume. A lot of people are probably gonna claim that, that their market doesn't really allow them to make that much money. That might be true if they're using a single app, but my market is one of the smallest out there. 75% of Americans live in a city that is as big or bigger than mine. The median household income is 36% lower than the national average. There's really nothing special about it at all. I do know that the multi-apping strategy works in big cities as well as these small towns. And that's because the most important thing that you need is volume. You need more orders to choose from. The thing is the orders in my town are not particularly large either. I reject around 95% of what I get. What the 3 apps does gives me that volume that I need to be really choosy about which ones I want to take. I believe that most people in most places across the US can achieve the same result. Step 2, know your market on the day of the week and the time of the day and choose your orders carefully. When I say I made $35 an hour, that was not split evenly Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Before 4 p.m. on a weekday, that number was probably something closer to $25 an hour. And after 4 p.m. on a weekday, that number was probably closer to $40 an hour, $45 an hour. If you're talking about the weekend, it's a little bit more evenly spread throughout the day and probably a little bit higher than $40, $45 an hour throughout the whole day. If you wanted to work like the best 40 hours, for example, you could probably pick 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, and you'd probably make something like $40 an hour using this strategy. So you got to know when to take certain orders. On a Tuesday morning, I don't really expect a $15 to $20 order to come through, or maybe it will, but the chances are low. So I'm a little bit less reluctant to take the $9 to $10 order that I wouldn't take, in the evening. If things were happening on a booming Saturday evening, I might not take anything below $15 to $20 under any circumstances. It took me a while to feel sort of like confident in myself and what I should be accepting and what I shouldn't. It's okay to experiment a little bit. You can just like reject everything, or you can accept and then unassign when something better comes along, as long as you don't dip below that percentage. It's just that, I think that experimentation was really needed for me, and it might be for you too. Number 3 is drive around. There are tons of delivery people who would offer advice on how long should you wait in a parking lot before moving on. My answer, 0 minutes, no time at all. I don't know why people wait in parking lots. I think it comes from this idea that Doordash and whatever other app is going to give priority to whoever's closest to the restaurant. But that's not true. They give priority equally to all the people who are within a certain zone. If you're in a parking lot with a bunch of other dashers, you can have the same priority as somebody who's half a kilometer away. You can be like right next to 5 restaurants and a full kilometer away from 15 other restaurants. Or you can be half a kilometer away from 20 restaurants and you'll have the same priority as all of the dashers and Uber Eats drivers, whatever, who are right next to all 20 of those restaurants. Just continuously drive around. Don't wait anywhere. DoorDash does this thing where sometimes they'll give me a delivery as soon as I enter the freeway going the wrong direction. And for a long time, it was super frustrating until I realized why they do it. From their perspective, they will be giving orders to the dasher who can be there right when they think the order is going to be finished. If I go straight there before entering the freeway, then I'll be super early. Now, from a human perspective, I would rather be waiting at the restaurant than driving around and wasting my gas. But from their algorithm's perspective, I just entered that zone that puts me at the restaurant right on time. What I'm trying to say is that DoorDash and the other apps are going to be trying to give they're going to be giving the orders not just to the people who are closest, but they're going to be giving the orders to the people who can get to the restaurants just on time. And so I think driving around, entering and exiting zones faster, you're going to get a lot more orders. Number 4, only accept orders from restaurants that are either going to not keep you waiting or are not going to BS you about wait times. BSing you about wait times is even worse than keeping you waiting, to be honest. There are a number of restaurants out there, IHOP and Denny's come straight to my mind, that will not only keep you waiting for long periods of time, but like IHOP in particular seems like they've been trained to tell you it'll be 5 to 10 minutes, no matter how long it's actually going to take. Now, I obviously don't actually know how long it's going to take, and so from my perspective, if I get there and they tell me 5 to 10 minutes, I think, okay, I better wait for the order. I'm not going to unassign it. I'm not going to go take another order. But then 5 to 10 minutes turns into another 5 to 10 minutes and another, and eventually you've been there for 45 minutes and it's still not done. And in that 45 minutes, you probably could have taken 2 other orders. In fact, I did one time at Denny's. I'd already had my rule not to take any Denny's orders, but I went to, it was $27, and it took me right next door to my house. Right at the end of the day, I thought to myself, I may as well just take this one. I got to Denny's, it wasn't ready. I ended up taking, I knew how bad they were already, so I took another Uber Eats order, came back, still not ready. Took another Uber Eats order, came back, still not ready. I'd taken 2 other orders while I was waiting for this one at Denny's. I waited another 15 minutes and they still didn't know what the status was. The problem with these restaurants is not just that they take forever, it's also that there seems to be zero communication between the staff and the kitchen, the front staff and the kitchen. And so the front staff actually has no clue. Avoid these restaurants altogether. They are nothing but trouble. On the off chance that you get a good order that pays well and doesn't take that long, it's just not worth the risk. I will almost always reject those automatically if I'm not really close to the restaurant. Sometimes if I'm like right next door, I'll just accept it just to go see if it's ready, and if it's not ready, I unassign and I'm out of there. There are a number of other restaurants, Red Robin and Ram Brewery come to mind, where there is usually like a 5 to 10 minute wait on the food, but they're pretty much always like on point with the communication. There's somebody at the front who's dedicated to telling you how long it's going to take, and it's pretty much accurate. Those restaurants are worth it. They're valuable. I pretty much just always assume that it's going to take an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and I won't accept one of those orders if that expected wait isn't worth it. There are, of course, another number of other restaurants that are pretty much just have the food ready every time, right when you get there. Baja Fresh, which is actually right next to Red Robin. Obviously, this is going to depend a lot on your market, and it's going to take some experimentation. Don't think it won't. Take the time, experiment, take lots of orders, take 0 orders. Just see what comes through, just see how well the restaurants do, and take notes. Take notes of what works and what doesn't work, and repeat. Number 5, use the multi-apping strategy to accept orders from another app at the end of a delivery. When I was just doing DoorDash, I think my biggest money killer was the wait time between orders. Dropping off an order and then driving back to the restaurants or whatever I had to do in order to get another order. I think that in and of itself, the fact that I can accept an order as I'm on my way to drop off one, there's usually very little time between orders nowadays, except like maybe during the most dead times of the day. Speaking of money killers, number 6 is always avoid traffic. Know when there's going to be traffic and know where to avoid it. A $10 order that should take you like 15 minutes can very easily turn into a 45-minute hole in your wallet. And so I think it's one of the most important things is to avoid the traffic altogether. I think we've gotten very lucky during the pandemic, but in this month that I'm talking about, it started getting just as bad as before, pretty much. And for me, in particular, for my town, there's usually a lot of traffic from around noon to 6 p.m., but especially focused on the north end of town. That's where all the restaurants are, and presumably that's where all the other delivery people are, but there are still enough restaurants to get me through that period on the south end of town. The extra orders that you get on the north end of town really aren't worth much if they take twice as long. Getting stuck in traffic has the really obvious consequences of slower orders, but it also has the really not so obvious consequence of not really being able to multi-app. Not that you can't reject lots of orders and just take the best one, but what you can't do is you can't stack orders on top of each other. Because if you're sitting in traffic on your way to, a restaurant that for a second order, the person from the first order is going to see you. Do pretty much everything you can to avoid traffic. There's really nothing good that comes out of it. Sometimes it's unavoidable and you just have to plan accordingly. But for the most part, just do everything you can to avoid it. It's not just that it's bad and it's slow, but it's unpredictable. And I think that that's the hardest part. Number 7, and this is something that I've touched upon on several points, but I think it deserves like its own point altogether. Stack orders from multiple apps. If you don't know what it means, it basically means taking 2 orders from 2 different apps at the same time. This is probably the trickiest part of multi-apping, and you don't have to do it. It's stressful and difficult. When I first started doing this job, I was only doing Doordash. And I probably made $21, $22 an hour, something like that. If you were to follow numbers 1 through 3, without stacking multiple orders, you'd probably boost that up to $28, $29 an hour. You do not have to stack orders on top of each other. It will probably boost your overall earnings $5, $6 an hour. But it is probably the most stressful part of this whole job, most difficult part of this whole job. If you feel comfortable, if you have the mental capacity, if you've gotten used to steps 1 through 6, I would recommend giving it a try. I did reject a whole bunch of orders before I found a good one. But I turned a $14 order into a $27 order with almost the same time commitment. I think that the second one is going to take an additional like 3 or 4 minutes. Taking 2 orders from 2 different apps at the same time. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4, sometimes up to 6, because I one time had one, it was so busy where all 3 apps gave me double orders. And I took them all and it was great. Now what I recommend doing is using Google Maps to kind of map out your entire route. So first, this is my location. This is the restaurant, Wild River, which I've already arrived at the restaurant now, so it wouldn't matter as much. But then what we have is on this page right here, you can add a second address. So then I get my Grubhub. I type in the address. And then you can see on the map here that it actually doesn't really make sense. So you can flip these around and then make that, whichever one ends up with the least amount of time spent on the road is ideally the one that you want. So I mean, that's the entire idea here. You can play around with those, and if you need to cancel one, you cancel one. That knowledge of where you're going to be and when is going to be your ticket to knowing whether or not you can accept a second order while you're on another one already. And what it does is it also gives you kind of like ETAs. So it'll tell you when you'll be where, roughly, as long as the Google Maps data is accurate, which it usually is, as long as there's not unpredictable traffic. If you want to do this, you have to pretty much always follow step 4. Never pick up from a place that's going to keep you waiting. Don't be afraid to unassign from a place that has kept you waiting for too long and you need to go pick up another order. It's at some point or another, it's going to happen. A quick note, Grubhub and Doordash let you see the delivery address while you're en route to the restaurant still, after you've accepted it. But Uber Eats does not. They only show you the restaurant's address, and then once you've accepted it, then they show you the delivery address. But there's a little trick. You can mark the food as picked up. As long as you're far enough away from the restaurant, it will show you the address, but then it will ask you to navigate back to the restaurant. So usually what I do is I will, right when I get an Uber Eats order, I will mark it as picked up. It will give me an error, it will give me the address, and then I will press navigate. But you have to be careful, because if you're really close to the restaurant, it will mark it as picked up. And as far as I know, there's no way to undo that. Last but not least, number 8, set stretched but still realistic goals. I didn't know that I could actually do $12,000 a month before I did it. I had daily and weekly goals. My daily goal during the week was to make about $350. My weekend goal for each weekend day was $400. And for each week, I really wanted to hit $2,800. Now, all of that adds up to about $12,000 when you put it through across an entire month. I was not always perfect. The conditions were not always perfect. I did not always meet my goals. But I would like to think that the goals altogether, the daily, weekly, and then this idea that I could make $12,000 in the month really stretched me. I knew that if I didn't meet a goal on a day, I would have to make up for it another day. Sometimes it allowed me to push forward, and sometimes it made it so that I had to go above and beyond when the conditions were right. Every day was a little bit different. It was very difficult, but I think I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And I think that this money has helped me It's helped me through the pandemic, and I think that it will continue to help me through this entrepreneurial journey. The truth is, I think there are a lot of people in my position, and I really hope that this can help other people. Maybe you're in a sticky spot financially, this can help. Maybe you want to, you need some seed funding for your startup. I mean, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Maybe you want to set off on a trip around the world. This is a really good place to start. Padding your bank account a little bit. Just be careful not to get complacent, because I think it can be addictive and you can forget to live your life.